Hello and welcome to Perfectly Paranormal, episode 28. My name's Annaschmidt, and I'm here every week to share with you true paranormal encounters and information about devils, demons, and dark energy beings that no one else talks about. And today we're looking in depth at portals and wormholes and what I have learnt through my paranormal house and property clearing work about these fascinating interdimensional doorways. And I will be sharing some of my personal and client-based experiences with these sometimes tricky doorways into other realities and what you can do about them. So we're going to delve into a little bit of information about portals first, so you have some background understanding before we dive into the stories. Now, portals are what I call interdimensional doorways between different realms and realities. Now, there are positive portals into the nature realms where fairies, pixies, gnomes, all of the elemental beings live. And they look after our environment. But there are also portals into the darker realms, and I also suspect that there are portals into many other dimensional realities. I rarely find portals in people's energy fields or their chakras, but generally find them in homes, other buildings, and on the land. Now, I had an email from a client who asked some questions about portals, so I'm including those questions here today. Now, this lady lives in Canada and she wants to remain anonymous, but I think you will find that these questions that she asked address a lot of the common thoughts and wonderings about portals. So her first question was, I'm wondering what it takes to open a portal. And this was my response. Now, in my opinion, there are two different types of ways to open portals. There are the intentional portals and also the unintentional portals. Now, the intentional portals are opened by strong focus and intention by humans. We're going to cover why a little bit later on. The unintentional portals can be opened on the land or in places or in homes by large build-ups of emotional imprints or trauma imprints in those places, such as mass violence, car accidents, and self-harming behaviours, sometimes addictions such as alcoholism. If there's a big enough build-up of energetic imprints in those places, a portal doorway can be opened. Now, I think the strong vibrational frequency creates a tear in the energetic environment, creating this doorway into other realities. And I also suspect that dark or demonic beings can pick up on the change in the frequencies within different places in the earth. And if they find a frequency that they are drawn to, they can actually create a doorway in so they can come and help themselves to that energetic food. So my client's second question was, could talking or joking about portals open them up and then place people at risk of dark energetic attachments? And my response was, not from my viewpoint. Talking about portals, I do it all the time. When I'm addressing you now, I'm going to be explaining and talking about portals. It is not going to create a portal. There has to be a really strong, defined reason and intention for that energetic doorway to open. And she also mentions at the end of that question, or is it a more ritualistic practice to open portals? Now, they're the intentional portals that I mentioned earlier. Now, strong mind focus and intention are the main manifesting points, as mentioned, but adding a ritualistic practice, depending on what it is and what's in the mind of the person or people creating it, can add to the intensity of that portal. Now, portals must always be closed after you're finished using them. Portals left unsecured are an open invitation to energy beings from the darker realms, from other places, to travel each way freely until the doorway is correctly closed. Now, some people say that asking for a protective shield from your guides, angels, archangels around the portal while it's being used can sometimes protect the users. But I haven't found this to be so, because paranormal beings, we're talking about the detrimental portals here, are drawn to what we create. And it doesn't matter what sort of shielding or protection that you use, is that if there is a food source available that they're interested in, then they are going to come to that user, or they're going to come to that place. As I mention all the time in my podcast, dark and demonic level beings, they're just energy feeders. It's simply all they are. And if there's a vibration that they're interested in, and there's a big enough build-up of it, then they're going to be present. And there's not a lot you can do about it other than getting someone like myself in, clear the food, then the paranormal beings will leave. Now, her third question that she asked was, what are the different types of portals that exist? Now, from my knowledge that I've gained over the last 30 years, there are many types of portals, which I have broken into two groups just to make it easier for understanding. So firstly, we're going to look at the positive portals. Now, the first of these is the nature portals that I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier. These connect us to the elemental realities, where we have the nature carers who look after our flora and our fauna, and they come and go and tend to our natural world. Now, the second type of positive portal is what I call spiritual awareness portals. Now, a lot of people that I talk to are into spiritual practices, and they say that the human soul is a type of portal. Well, it is an energy. It is a ball of vibrating energy, so why wouldn't it be a portal? And in my opinion, this is true to a point. When people open their psychic and spiritual awareness, they're connecting to their higher selves, creating a doorway into working with higher vibrational beings, such as spirit guides, angels, archangels, creator energy. And your intention when using your spiritual or psychic skills creates this direct portal, doorway, whatever you want to call it. It creates a direct connection to the higher realities. Now, your intention when using your spiritual or psychic skills creates the direction in which your portal goes. It can either go positive to the higher realms, connecting with your guides, angels, archangels, as I just mentioned, or if you've got negative intentions, it can go to the lower vibrational realities, if you're dabbling in the dark arts, satanic practices, and so on. Now, the third aspect is some people say that using tarot cards or dowsing tools, such as pendulums or dowsing rods, creates a portal to different realities. So my opinion on that is that I use a pendulum every single day, sometimes 4 or 5 times a day, depending on what sort of work that I'm doing. I know by the spin of my pendulum and how it behaves that I'm connecting to my higher vibrational supporters. So maybe it does create a portal. I don't think about it that way. When you focus on creating portals, you're actually putting intention into doing that. I just know that when I pick up my pendulum and I get my clockwise spin straight away, that is my tuning into my higher self, to my guides, angels, whatever you want to look at it, whatever words you use. I'm connecting to a higher source of information, and I trust that. I don't even think of it as a portal. And also on that note is that using divination tools such as tarot cards, oracle cards, runes, they don't create portals either, unless you want to look at it as a spiritual portal where they're connecting through your soul energy to your higher self. If you're using them for dark intentions, dark purposes, then you may very well be opening up a doorway into the darker realms. It's all about what you focus on. So they're the positive sort of portals that I've mentioned. Then there are the detrimental portals. So we're going to look at Ouija boards or spirit boards. I find from my personal experience, as you will have heard in one of my previous episodes, episode 19, I talked about a bad experience I had with creating my own Ouija board because I wanted to connect to whatever was out there in the unknown. And that focus and intention created this doorway where I let something rather nasty into my house. So I tend to steer clear of Ouija boards, spirit boards. People often use them when they want to talk to their past loved ones. Really not necessary. Save yourself the trouble of possibly inviting something tricky and detrimental into your home. If you want to talk to your grandma who's passed away, for example, you can simply just talk to her out loud. Her soul energy will hear you. She may come and talk to you in your dreams. You may know that she's heard you by smelling her favourite scent or her scones or her jam she used to make, or that piece of music on the radio, that song or lyrics that you used to enjoy together. Spirits don't need to use Ouija boards or spirit boards to communicate with us. They've gone into that higher vibrational frequency, so they can just simply communicate with us without the use of these boards. Now, seances are another form of opening portals through the intention of wanting to connect with spirits on the other side. And as I've just mentioned, spirits of past loved ones simply do not need to use spirit boards or seances to communicate with us. They have so many other methods to get your attention, such as I will be describing in an upcoming episode number 31. So stay tuned for that if you're interested. Now, this is where we get into the darker end of the scale, satanic portals. These are opened by people wishing to invoke dark forces to do their bidding. And boy, are they in for a shock. You never know what you're letting in when you focus on the dark realms. There are so many different types of dark energy beings, demonic level beings, that will wreak havoc within yourself, within your home, within the place where you create this portal with your group. So it's really important that you never know what you're letting in, right? And they don't do what they're told by mere mortals. They have their own agendas. They simply use us as puppets to get into this reality. Now, demonic entities are really crafty, and they can sometimes place spells or booby traps on portal doorways so that the opening can't be closed. I have experienced portals with spells and hexes in homes, and also booby traps that have shot out all sorts of psychic attack into myself, creating tears in my chakras, tears in my energy field, giving me massive headaches. So I've learned to be very, very respectful portal doorways. So when you're closing portal doorways, it can take multiple methods to secure these really tricky ones. And sometimes, this is something else I've learned through my own experiences, there can be double doors. So if you imagine a portal in the wall in front of you, and then a space in between, and then a doorway on the other side, you don't know what sort of energy beings are lurking in that space in between or in that other reality. And these need sealing individually. We're going to talk about how to close portals a little bit later on in this episode, so stay tuned if you want to have a go at doing this. It's not hard, But you need to have a clear mind and you need to be able to focus on the process and also have some sort of belief in higher vibrational beings. Because seriously, they're doing the closing. You're simply asking with intention for them to assist you. Now, portals can sometimes be opened by dark and demonic beings into people's chakras, which are the energy centres, the vortexes that run through our body. So there's probably some people listening to this going, they simply don't exist. Chakras do not exist. Well, I can tell you they do. Because I know when I'm transitioning beings, when I'm tuning into clients to do energy work, as soon as I create that cording into a person to do their clearing, I'm picking up on all sorts of energy within that person that is disrupted, that is blocked, that is full of paranormals or emotional imprints. Chakras are real. They are simply energy centres within these physical bodies. Now, they can become corrupt by detrimental spiritual practices, build-ups of emotional imprints, trauma imprints, people who have mental health issues where they're self-harming. This is a really strong intention, and this is sometimes where there can be portals created. I've got a story about this later on in this episode that you'll find interesting. I'm not going to say any more about it now, but stay tuned. So, the next type of portal is the unintentional portals that can be created where there's been trauma on the land. And this sends the land energy into shock. The trauma and the portal energy can affect the functioning of the way the energy flows through the land, the functioning and the feel of buildings, which can alter the inhabitants of those buildings. It can affect their well-being, their sleep, their eating patterns, their behaviour patterns. It can trigger deeply hidden emotional issues, mental health issues that people try to hide away. But when there are portals in the land that we build buildings on, our homes, units, office buildings, some people are super sensitive to picking up on those portal doorways and what comes through them, and it can affect the way that they function. It can affect their health, their mind, body and spirit, basically. And I know this because I'm one of these people. I walk into places and I can feel the portals. I can feel the paranormal beings. It's quite annoying in some ways in that I'm limited to where I can go to, but in other ways it's totally fascinating. And if I didn't have these experiences, then I wouldn't be able to talk to you about them. Now, let's get into the stories. I have two interesting experiences for you. One telling of a portal in a bedroom and another telling of a portal in a person. Now, this is a very recent experience that I had in July 2023 when I was staying at a friend's house here in Tasmania, and I've called this story The Bedroom Portal Problems. Now, a friend of mine has a son who loves to watch paranormal movies in his bedroom, day and night. Like, he is simply what I would call a paranormal addict. The scarier the movie, the better. And we're going to call this young man Graham. He watches nothing else. It is simply all paranormal movies. Now, when I visited them recently, I felt a very unwelcoming presence in his room as I approached the house, because Graham's bedroom is right next to the main entrance of the home. And I could feel this pulsating energy coming through the walls as I approached the front door. And I stood there and I waited for Kathy, who is the mum, to answer the door. Now, Kathy and I chatted over a cuppa, and Graham came to say hello. Now, he knows my line of work and he's fascinated by what I do. And we often talk about paranormal happenings in movies and how he found them exciting and totally fascinating. Now, Graham said he wasn't sleeping very well, and I knew why. I didn't tell him there and then. I thought, no, I want to do some investigation work first. And how do you tell an 18-year-old anyway that constant viewing of paranormal movies can attract dark entities into places and create portals, and the only way to truly keep them away is to stop watching the movies? Now, Kathy said that I could do an energetic check on Graham's room. And this is the information that I found. I thought you might find it interesting. There were 3 demonic level beings present in the room. Now, they were attached to Graham's emotional creation of over 1,000 episodes of horror. So when he watches the movie, as much as he loves them, in his energy field, he's creating that vibration of horror. He'd been doing this for over the last 3 years, so there was quite a build-up. When you get into the thousands, this is when I find that you're really attracting the demonic level beings on a big scale, and the portals. There are also massive energetic build-ups of rage, hostility, and worthless. Now, I'm not judging Graham. We all have trigger emotions. We all create emotions. I talk about myself creating resentment all the time. It is something I'm working on constantly on not doing. So I'm not judging Graham. I am simply outlining this for you so you get an understanding of what attracts the paranormal beings and what creates the portals. Now, those emotions that I mentioned had been created as far back as 10 years ago. And these imprints would have been a big draw card for the demonic beings. And they would have loitered in the room feeding off the energetic food source. Now, there were 2 portals in Graham's room. And where do you think they were located? Right in the areas where he would be constantly watching his movies. Now, there was one vertical single-door portal in the wall at the head of his bed, which led into the dark realm. And this location of the portal would have added up to him having disturbed sleep all the time, because his mum actually said to me that sometimes she'd go into his bedroom of a morning and he would be sleeping the other way round in the bed. He'd have his head at the foot end of the bed. So he knew there was something going on, but he just couldn't put his finger on it. The other was a horizontal double-door portal over his bed, over the centre of his bed. Now, this led into multiple interdimensional realities, not necessarily the dark realm, because we talk about cosmic beings travelling backwards and forwards through the universe, and there's so many different other types of energy beings that we don't know what is actually coming through these portal doorways, so it's best not to create them in the first place. Now, once these supernatural doorways were located and identified, I set to releasing the paranormal beings from the room, and then I could close the sleep-inhibiting portal doorway first with angelic help. These heavenly beings have divine power. Whether you believe in them or not, they exist. And they can seal these portals with the highest vibration possible. When people say they're closing portals, we are simply the channel into this earth reality. So the angelic beings are channeled through myself with my intention of asking them to help close this doorway. Because we have to ask, it's free will, so if I don't ask for these portals to be closed, even though I've identified them, they're not going to close them because this is a free will. This is the way it works. So specific wording is needed when you ask for angelic help. Now, I must tell you, I don't think Graham has changed his ways, and he may very well open up more portals in the future with his detrimental viewing and paranormal fascination. Now let's get into our second story. This is a client experience from 2022, and I have called this encounter the mind-blowing headache. Now, spiritual people often assume that they are fully protected from energetic interference from dark beings and their influence. And I'm shaking my head. Like, seriously, these people try and take the shortcuts. They try and take the easy way out. People get involved in all sorts of energetic practices, all sorts of healing practices, and they can often open themselves up to detrimental energetic influences, cording, portals from other group members or teachers who don't fully understand what they are doing. Spiritual people often assume that angelic beings, you just call on the archangels to protect you. You know, they can't fully protect us from dark interference if we have build-ups of negative energetic imprints, emotional imprints, trauma imprints within our minds, bodies, chakras or meridian lines. Now, this client came to me with mind-splitting headaches. Now, this is really important to take note of the words mind-splitting headaches. She was very spiritual and she would be attending lots of classes and interacting with all sorts of people, never thinking that she would have any detrimental energetic problems. Well, she soon learnt that you have to be more discerning with who you let into your personal space. We're going to call this lady Angela. Now, Angela would often allow people to connect with her during a healing class. So when I say connect, I mean you're creating a cording connection. So that person, you are giving them permission to enter your energy field, to enter your mind, your body, your spirit. Just bad move. I just simply say, just don't do it. It's just my opinion. Now, she'd been doing this for many years and she hadn't had any problems until now, when she came home from a class with a mind-splitting headache. Now, Angela didn't sleep for weeks. She was tossing and turning all night, and she simply felt like her life force was being drained from her mind and body. She came across me through a referral from another client of mine, and Jen assured Angela that I could help with this energetic issue. And when I talked with Angela and she allowed me to do an energetic clearing, this is what I found. Upon looking into her crown chakra, I found a double door portal that had been opened through cording from the recent healing session with a lady in the group. Now, once I uncloaked this portal, this is one of the tricks that dark and demonic beings will use to hide their portals. Once it was uncloaked and the cording was removed from her crown chakra, I removed any emotional imprints that the beings were feeding off. The portal doorways could both be closed. Now, you're going to be asking, how does Anna know that? I go through lots of different processes when I do energy clearings for people. It is very, very thorough work. I have OCD issues. I do. You probably believe me. Because energy work, you have to be really thorough. You can't skip corners. You can't cut corners and just assume she'll be right, mate. That is not the attitude to have. So I will work and work and work with clients until I find the cause of their issue. Now, once this was done, Angela's headaches stopped within about, I think she said it was about 36 hours. Her headaches seemed to lessen and lessen and lessen until it simply disappeared and she forgot about it. And she was starting to sleep better, which is just the best thing. She said her whole demeanour improved. She was more energised and motivated to get back into her normal routine. And she upgraded her protection methods using multiple processes, calling on angelic beings more often. And she was more cautious about who she let into her personal space. Now, later on in this episode, I'm going to be walking you through how to close a portal, so stay listening. So next we're going to be looking at wormholes, as they vary slightly from portals to who uses them and what they're used for. So wormholes are fascinating. I don't have a lot of information about them. I've only come across them maybe 2 or 3 times in all the years I've been doing this work, but I will share with you what I know. So I call wormholes energetic highways that interdimensional and cosmic, also known as ET beings, use to travel from point A to point B in the universe. Now, I've mentioned this earlier in episode 27 about the mysterious hat men, and are they from another plane of existence, and how do they travel around? So if you're interested, have a listen to that episode. Now, sometimes these thoroughfares can traverse through the earth and people's homes, creating an energetic disturbance that those living in the home can constantly feel, but can't find a rational cause. Now, symptoms felt in particular spaces within the home can range from feeling uncomfortable or unbalanced in the mind or the body, can't sort of stand in that space for long periods, being energetically drained or experiencing brain fog, which can point to a possible supernatural cause if it's not a medical issue. So as you will see in the following recount of a real-life wormhole in Betty's home. Now, Betty's another friend of mine, and these cosmic superhighways caused an issue within her home, as you will soon hear, and I've called this story My Kitchen Superhighway. Now, Betty and I have had many unusual experiences in her home over the years. I have cleared her house of up-teen paranormal disturbances, but nothing seemed to fix the problem in the kitchen. There's an area in Betty's kitchen where she feels constant cold spots and feels unsettled feelings in her mind and body. Now, to the eye, her kitchen looks normal, but when I go and stand there, when I place myself in this space, I get instant brain fog, can't think straight, I can't talk straight. So that tells me that there is either demonic beings present, or there's a portal open, or there's a wormhole. And when I use my pendulum in that space, I like to use it as an external focus outside the body, because my body will give me the signs and symptoms, but I can't think through that. It's simply just the symptoms. I need a focusing tool, and dowsing rods, I find them, they just simply take too long to give answers. So pendulums work really well as a dowsing tool. Now, Betty watched me as I started dowsing in her kitchen. And this time, I was determined to get to the core of her kitchen nightmare issues. And I just walked around and I held my pendulum out in front of me. I walked past the fridge and my pendulum indicated an energetic disturbance. And I asked, is this a dark energy problem? And I straight away got my no response. So then I asked if this problem was an off-world issue. And I got my yes. So I continued to steadily just walk around the kitchen island bench and curiously watched the intensity of the pendulum swing. It would increase and then it would decline. And I suddenly looked at Betty and I said, I think this is a wormhole. This is some sort of interdimensional highway running vertically through your kitchen. Now, this was the second wormhole that I'd found in a home, and this was the biggest yet. So unlike portals, which are doorways that can be closed, wormholes cannot. So the problem now was what to do with this 3.5 metre wide vertical tunnel of fast-flowing energy that was running through the kitchen. Now I just kind of stood there and I'm going through all the information in my head and my mind was kind of racing a little bit. And I was sorting through my experiences and past solutions and looking for a way to fix this problem. So I went and stood back in the middle of the wormhole and I felt my feet being pulled into the earth. Now I did wonder if this was a hint from management, which is what I call my spirit guides, angels, archangels, my spiritual helpers. One word is easier than all that I've just said. Now, they were telling me that we needed to ground the kitchen. You'll hear me talk about people grounding themselves, going outside, walking in nature, using earthing mats, touching plants, hugging trees, all that sort of thing. Buildings also need to be grounded into Mother Earth because we can't shut this wormhole. It simply is not possible. But we need to manage some way that Betty can still get around in her kitchen, lessening the issues. We're not going to be able to fix them all together and make it more manageable. So I'm standing there looking at Betty and she's looking at me, and we're thinking, what better way to ground a home than with intention, crystals, and some minerals from the earth? Now, Betty is a crystal lover, and she set about gathering all the grounding stones from her extensive crystal collection. She found jasper, bronzite, tourmaline, hematite to anchor the kitchen area into the earth. And we also thought to balance this anchoring that we would add selenite and clear quartz. Now, these are both of a higher vibration, and they would help balance the kitchen space. Now, the energetic feel of the kitchen improved over the next 30 minutes. But I felt that something else still needed to be done. Because as I said before, energy work is never short and sweet. You've got to do the detective work. Can't find the problems unless you delve into all the possible aspects and then ask management, are there any other aspects we need to look at that I haven't come across yet? So as I'm standing there thinking about management, I heard in my head, tears, and I went, So if this is a wormhole, it must have some sort of energetic casing around the outside. And I thought to myself, I wonder if there's a tear in this wormhole. So now I asked my pendulum to identify if there were any tears in the outer layer of this wormhole. Now, there were two holes where the energy from this wormhole was simply seeping into the kitchen. And I politely asked management. I call on Archangel Raphael and his clearing team, as I call them. And I also, because this is a cosmic highway, I also asked any cosmic or extraterrestrial beings that were present or willing to help if they could please assist in repairing the two tears in their highway. Now, after 10 minutes or so, Betty and I noticed yet another improvement. And I felt that this was all that we could do for now. I explained to Betty that this was a case of managing the situation. There was no fix-all, and that I'm always forever amazed at the types of energetic disturbances found in people's homes. Now, if you're enjoying this episode, please feel free to subscribe, share with your friends, help me get the message out there about how the energetic and paranormal world around us affects our mind, body, and spirit. I would really appreciate it. So now we're going to get to the nitty-gritty part of how to close a portal in your home. Now, to close portals, you're going to need to be able to use dowsing rods or to use a pendulum. Like I mentioned earlier, they are our external focus to give us the information to the questions that we ask. Now, as I mentioned earlier, portals come in several different forms, such as a single door portal leading into another dimension or a double door portal with the space in between. And they can have spells, curses, hexes, they can be cloaked so people can't close them and the paranormal beings can just keep using them. Now, sometimes too, which I didn't mention earlier, demonic level beings will guard the entrances to these portals. They're simply just trying to stop us from closing them. But with our intention and connection with the higher vibrational beings, they must honour the fact that the doorway has to be closed. Now, when you're looking for portals, you have to think multi-dimensional when it comes to finding their locations. Like I mentioned in Graham's story, there was one at the head of his bed, and there was also one that was a horizontal portal that was over his bed. That was within the room. It wasn't necessarily in the wall or in the ceiling. That can actually be within a space. And another thing to be aware of is that portals are occasionally found in objects. So if you think you've closed a portal doorway in your room and there's still something that doesn't quite feel right, check objects. Use your dowsing tool to go around and ask, is there a portal in this bed? Is there a portal in this vase, bookcase, and so on? Because you'd be surprised where they are located. Now, here is a simple process that you can use for closing single door portals. So as mentioned, do your dowsing to gather the information about the portal's location and any other aspects such as cloaking, or is it booby-trapped, or are there any spells attached to the portal? That's your starting point. Then you're going to ask your spiritual helper, whether it be guides, angels, archangels, Buddha, Jesus, God, or any other spiritual supporter that you are connected to. You're going to ask them to help you close this portal because you are the connection point into this earth reality. So what you're going to do is you're going to, like I said, locate the portal and stand near it. You're going to visualize a door of some sort. It can be a manhole cover, a bank safe door. I like to visualize the sort of doors you see on submarines that seal really tight. And then I say out loud, I call on Archangel Michael or Archangel Raphael to please come now and seal this portal doorway. And I ask that this doorway is sealed with, I like to call it Archangel Glue. So I know you're probably going to be giggling, but it works. I imagine an angelic super glue that they use around the doorway. So they're going to apply this glue, shut the door. And also recently I saw in my head that they add a type of stamp to the portal. It's a higher vibrational. What I see come out of it is when they stamp the doorway with this gold stamp, is that it's like there's a force field that emanates from this stamping, and it gives another layer of protection. Now, I know it sounds weird, but the glue and the stamping visualization really works for me. It is the intention of closing this doorway, and I find that it really works. Because when you've closed portals, I will go and do something for 5 or 10 minutes and then I'll come back and I'll do some dowsing and check that the portal's been closed. I do a lot of work remotely, which is long distance, so I'll do the dowsing to check. If you're in the place where you are closing the portal, you'll simply walk into the room and you will feel the difference. If someone sleeps in that room, they will feel the difference. I was there. I stayed overnight when I did the closing at Graham's bedroom at my friend's house. And I asked him the next morning, did you sleep better? And his answer was yes. So I knew that the portals, ×2, had been closed. And also I've got to walk past his bedroom doorway to go out the main entrance of the house. And it felt clear. There weren't any energetic vibrations. I didn't feel brain fog. I didn't feel unsteady or unwell when I walked past that room, as I did when I initially came into the house. Now, this is a process you can use for closing double door portals. You're simply repeating the process I've just described, but you do the door on the other side first. And you have to work fairly quickly because you've got to imagine the paranormal beings are aware of what you're doing. And you might get a few that try and sneak in. So I will always be aware, I'll have it written down, double door portal, there's this particular booby trap. I will call on the angelic beings and I'll be like, right, we need to do this super quick. We're going to go in, we're going to close that doorway on the other side, we're going to seal it with the glue, we're going to add the stamp for that extra force field of protection, we're going to come through, we're going to close this door in this reality before anything has a chance to slip through from that in-between space. Now you can get really imaginative with closing your portals. I like to keep it simple because I do this so often. I just need a really simple, concrete process that I know that works. Now I know people that use manhole covers, they use like an archangel mesh or an archangel plaster. I've seen people who have put metal covers on top and then used bolts. It's all about your imagination because remember, it's the intention to close the door that works. But you have to believe in it. You can't say, oh, I'm going to close that portal, but you don't believe it will work because it simply won't work. It's about your intention. It's like everything in this world. What you put out is what you get back. So if you're putting out there that the Archangel Michael is going to help you close that portal, it shall be done. If you don't believe in it, then your processes are going to be wishy-washy and it's just not going to work. And you're still going to have sleep issues or paranormal beings coming through that doorway and being a pain. Now, once you've closed the portals, if you have paranormal beings in your home, then you need to contact an energy clearer. I don't share my process for clearing these beings because it is really, really complicated. And they're always coming up with new, sneakier tricks to stay present in people's homes. So I have to be on the ball when I do this work. I've got my standard process and then I've got a second level process. And now, even yesterday, I had to develop a third level process because they're just getting sneakier and more conniving because they want to stay in our reality. But we're in charge in this reality. This is our domain. They can't be rude to them. It has to be done politely, as I do with my work. But they can be removed. So you need to see a medium or a house clearer or a house cleanser because they will be able to help you remove the paranormal beings from your home. So in episode 29, we're looking at paranormal beings in the workplace and how they affect your mind and body, disrupting your thinking and your ability to make necessary decisions. And I have an interview for you with Dean, who is a dear friend of mine. He's in the UK. And I've done lots of work with Dean. And recently, I cleared his workplace for him. And he wishes to share his unbelievable before and after experiences that he had from the energetic clearing that I did of his long-term workplace. So thank you for joining me today. And don't forget, if you want to share a paranormal experience just with myself, or you would like me to share one of your experiences through my podcast, you can do a voice recording or you can write out your experience and I will read it exactly as you have written. Email me at spiritualbeing44@gmail.com. And for information on paranormal house clearing, you can visit my website, Spiritual Being. You will find the address in the description box. And I look forward to sharing this spooky space again with you next week. And remember, life is perfectly paranormal.